This is Qtv Nightly News, which is also on Q Radio 103.3 FM. I'm Udu Gajaga, and thank you for joining us. Here are the headlines. President Barrow and delegation on Saturday performed Umrah, a lesser pilgrimage in Islam's holiest city of Mecca, after 2 days of spiritual preparation in Medina. In an exclusive interview with QTV, Natib's executive director, Aissatou Dabo, revealed the successful rescue of 11 children from labor exploitation in the Gambia, among other key initiatives. The Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, in partnership with the World Bank and the West Africa Regional Digital Integration Program, today commenced a 3-day validation workshop for E-Gambia Power Project feasibility study. In international news, with full state honors and thousands in attendance, Guinea bid farewell to Adja André Touré, the country's founding first lady and wife of the late President Sékou Touré, who passed away at the age of 92. In sports news, Pape Thiaw's tenure as head coach of Senegal has ended abruptly after the Fédération Sénégalaise de Football dismissed him following the country's underwhelming performance at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Those were the headlines. Now the news in detail. Welcome and thank you for joining us. This is QTV News. President Barrow and delegation on Saturday performed Umrah, a lesser pilgrimage, in Islam's holiest city after 2 days of spiritual preparation in Medina. Aliou Cissé is monitoring the delegation and he now reports.
After 2 days of prayers and reflection in Medina, President Barrow and delegation departed from Mecca on Saturday morning on board the high-speed train. But even before arriving in Mecca, the spiritual journey had already begun. Dressed in the simple white garments of Ihram, the president and members of his delegation, including Lady Sergeant Barrow, Commissioner General of the Gambia Revenue Authority Yankuba Dabo, and the Chief of Staff Aliou Loum, entered a state of consecration that requires pilgrims to set aside worldly comforts and distractions.
What I want to say is that this is a very spiritual journey, and Medina was just to prepare ourselves, to prep ourselves, and now we will say the intention. And when we say the intention, that means now you are in a state of consecration. Meaning, when you go to the toilet, just be cautious that you don't use the soap because it is scented. Unless you finish your Umrah, as men, you cannot brush, you cannot shave. Now, you will do that after you finish your Umrah. You cannot use.
Consul General Ibn Dur reminded them that Ihram is not simply a change of clothing, but a commitment to purity in conduct and intention.
Use perfumes as well, because the rituals doesn't permit that.
The delegation recited the Talbiyah together, answering what Muslims believe is Allah's call to pilgrimage.
Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wa ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak, labbaik.
Upon arrival in Makkah, the president was received by Saudi officials before proceeding to Masjid Al-Haram.
How are you? You okay? Very good.
He first joined Wasipas for the Maghrib prayer before beginning Tawaf, circling the Holy Kaaba 7 times aboard a specially designed mobility vehicle reserved for heads of state and dignitaries. The president later completed Sa'i, walking between the hills of Safa and Marwa 7 times, commemorating Hajra's desperate search for water for her son, Prophet Ismail, an act of faith that remains central to the pilgrimage. After completing the prescribed rites, the Gambian leader returned to the Grand Mosque for Isha prayers, marking the completion of his Umrah. For Consul General Ndur, however, the most powerful lesson of the Umrah lies beyond rituals.
You can see these 2 pieces just symbolizes when we die, how we are shrouded. And we are removed of every title of dunya. We are all equal in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You wouldn't know, whether this is an imam or a consul general or a minister. We are all equal in the sight of Allah. The only
أرجو رحمتك وأخشى عذابك.
President Barrow left Makkah for Jeddah today, where he is expected to hold several high-level meetings, including an interaction with the Gambian community before concluding his 6-day visit. Reporting for QTV News, I am Aliou Cisse.
In an exclusive interview with QTV, the Executive Director of the National Agency Against Trafficking in Persons, NATIP, Aissatou Dabo, revealed the successful rescue of 11 children from labor exploitation in the Gambia. The breakthrough comes after the agency intensifies its crackdown on human trafficking ahead of the upcoming World Day Against Trafficking in Persons on July 30th. Mam Nabuka has the rest of that story.
These individuals that have been rescued were working in construction sites for Gambians. Imagine seeing a 12-year-old in a huge construction building, tying rods and doing all of that. Just to the eye, you know it is wrong. It is a matter that is still under investigation, so it may be prejudice for me to say one thing or the other, but just to implore on the public to continue to be vigilant. The government has set up NATIP to do its job, but we cannot do it alone. We need everyone on the ground, all eyes, all ears, to make sure that we register greater successes in the fight against human trafficking in the Gambia and across the sub-region.
That was Aissatou Dabo, the Executive Director of the National Agency Against Trafficking in Persons, on the major rescue operation of minors from labor exploitation that was recently executed. The action takes place as the annual observance of World Day Against Trafficking in Persons is set to be commemorated on July 30th. Reiterating the global call to raise awareness and fast-track institutional action against the trade in human beings. The Gambia, made vulnerable by porous borders and economic challenges, has become a prime location for traffickers to exploit vulnerable individuals. This comes alongside NATIP recently revealing the successful repatriation of 30 trafficked Gambians. Expanding on the significance of combating this issue, Aissatou Dabo shed light on some of the more common forms of exploitation and the growing threat of online recruitment.
At the present, sexual exploitation is the most common. After sexual exploitation, we have labor exploitation. We have a lot of young people that are using the technology today, be it their laptops, be it through their tablets, but there is no parental control applications installed in these devices. And what happens is someone can be grooming your child, someone can be putting them in a position of compromise without you knowing, and this leads to recruitment in a way.
Ms. Dabo explained how vast sensitization programs are offered to stop people from falling victim to human trafficking networks.
Our awareness raising cuts across, from vulnerable communities to the general public to public and private sector, all other institutions, you name it, because no one is out of the bracket of vulnerability for human trafficking.
NATIP's key mandates lean on prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership. Faced with the question of which of those mandates have seen greater progress over the years, Dabo highlighted prosecutions.
There has been a time over the years when there was no single trafficking in persons prosecution in the Gambia. Over the past 2 years, I am happy to say that we have been able to secure 4 convictions. So all these 4 individuals are currently at the State Central Prisons Mile 2, serving a term of imprisonment of 15 years in addition to paying a fine.
She also delved into key details regarding partnerships, especially when putting transnational crimes into context.
The moment it involves borders, it involves different jurisdictions, it reminds us that this is not a fight we can do alone. We continue to call on our local and international partners to say no matter how much we have done and how much success we have been able to register in our anti-human trafficking efforts, more needs to be done.
Despite so many strategic milestones and awareness-raising methods, including anti-trafficking materials in Braille to be inclusive of the visually impaired, Dabo detailed one of the key challenges they face as an institution and implored the public for assistance.
People don't want to come out to report cases. So I call on the public to report any suspicious activity of human trafficking. You don't need to be sure that it's a tip case. We are the experts. Just suspect, let us know, and we will do the work necessary to verify whether that is a case that needs our intervention, referral, or otherwise.
As the global community prepares for the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, NATIP is calling for heightened public vigilance, stronger community-level reporting mechanisms, and increased state support to effectively eliminate human trafficking networks once and for all. Mam Nabuka, reporting for QTV News.
The Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, in partnership with the World Bank and the West Africa Regional Digital Integration Program, today commenced a 3-day validation workshop for the E-Gambia Power Project Feasibility Study. The initiative is designed to strengthen the country's digital infrastructure and support the Gambia's journey towards becoming a digitally connected nation. Here is Senabu Chow.
Humbly declare this validation workshop officially open.
The workshop brings together representatives from government institutions, technical experts, development partners, and other key stakeholders to review and validate the findings of the feasibility study report before the project's implementation. While we are all getting used to transacting online, with everything from recharging electricity to paying for ID cards and groceries being done online, how secure are these transactions? The E-Gambia Power Project feasibility study also aims to strengthen national cybersecurity systems while advancing strategic digital information and infrastructure development initiatives across the country. Mr. David Wu, a consultant with Wipro Technology, provided an overview of the E-Gambia Power Project.
There are two major backbones we want to say. One is to leverage or convert NAWEC national grid network into a digital backbone. NAWEC and the GAMTEL will cover the entire country on the backbone communication at a very high speed and zero block. That's number one. And second, converge the service.
Lamin Saidikan is the General Manager, Digital Gambia Limited.
We are not only endorsing a feasibility study, we are affirming a national vision, a vision of a Gambia where energy, digital infrastructure, financial systems, and broadcasting converge to empower every citizen.
Professor Abdul Karim Jallo, Director General of the Gambia ICT Agency, challenged technical experts and stakeholders to critically review the feasibility study report to ensure it is comprehensive, practical, and ready for implementation before it is finalized.
As we look at the document, let's really critique the document on the lenses of engineering. We are all engineers. So let's look at it from design for excellence. Because successful national infrastructure is not judged merely by whether it can be built. It should be judged by whether it can perform.
The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Lamin Jabi, spoke to QTV after launching the E-Gambia Power Project Feasibility Study Validation Workshop.
It is time for the entire country to get prepared for full connectivity. Every aspect of Gambian life, we want digital technologies and electricity power to have a role in that life. They need it. We are creating the platform. During the course of the implementation, obviously many things will be brought about. We will do a lot of consultation with them. And at the time of that consultation, we need their support. We need their readiness to be with us as we implement this project.
Once implemented, the project is expected to provide quadruple play services, including broadband internet, IP-enabled smart electricity meters, IP televisions, and IP telephony. These services will improve access to digital connectivity and essential public services for households, businesses, and public institutions across the Gambia. For QTV News, I am Senabu Chow.
From that report, we will now go for a commercial break, and when we return, we have more national and international news stories, plus sports news. Do stay tuned. Welcome back, and this is QTV News. I am Umudu Gajaga, and here are the rest of tonight's other stories. The National Human Rights Commission, in collaboration with the UNDP, through funding from the Japanese government, today commenced a 3-day training course for law enforcement officers to promote gender-responsive and rights-based policing. Aliu Sise tells us more.
The initiative brings together participants from the various security institutions under the project Strengthening the Rule of Law and Promoting Women and Youth-led Community Security for Inclusive Justice and Democratic Governance in the Gambia. The training comes as law enforcement institutions continue to play a vital role in protecting human rights. However, the Commission says integrating gender-responsive and rights-based approaches into everyday policing remains a challenge. Emmanuel Daniel Joff is the chairperson of the National Human Rights Commission.
Respect for human rights is the strongest foundation upon which lasting national security is built. A society where people trust their security institution is a society that is more peaceful, more resilient, and more secure. Trust cannot be commanded by force, by intimidation. It is earned through professionalism, accountability, fairness, respect for dignity of every individual.
The training therefore seeks to strengthen the capacity of law enforcement personnel by equipping them with gender-sensitive policing skills, improving the handling of gender-based violence cases, addressing gender gaps within the sector, and promoting compliance with international human rights standards. Evelyn Edroma, the Deputy Resident Representative of UNDP in the Gambia, acknowledged the long-standing partnership between our office and the Commission. She commended the Commission's work in advancing human rights while urging the participants to make best use of the training.
I wish to also extend our sincere appreciation to the government and the people of Japan for their support, which has made this training possible. Their funding reflects Japan's strong commitment for human security, the rule of law, and inclusive governance.
On behalf of the National Security Advisor, Landing Kinte, the Chief of Staff of National Security, welcomed the training as timely and apt. He said the government of the Gambia is committed to building a professional security.
Law enforcement officers are the front line of protecting citizens and upholding the rule of law. Your daily interactions with the community shape public trust. This training is therefore just not an ordinary exercise, but a vital opportunity to deepen your understanding of how gender sensitivity and respect for human rights guide policing practices.
It is hoped that at the end of the training, these participants will translate the knowledge into their daily activities. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Aliou Cisse.
Now, coming up next is international news. With full state honors and thousands in attendance, Guinea has said goodbye to one of the last living figures of its independence generation. Hadja André Touré, the country's founding first lady and wife of the late President Sékou Touré, has died at the age of 92. This story by Ade Darame is narrated by Usman Jata.
She stood beside Ahmed Sékou Touré long before he became Guinea's first president, accompanying him as the independence movement gathered momentum in the closing years of French colonial rule. Even before independence, the young Guinean couple was welcomed to the White House by President Dwight D. Eisenhower and Vice President Richard Nixon as Guinea sought international recognition and support for its new path. When Guinea became independent in 1958, André Touré became the country's first lady.
Ce que nous demandons au nom de la solidarité internationale.
A year later, as President Sékou Touré addressed the United Nations, her elegance and confidence attracted international attention, with the couple appearing on the cover of Ebony magazine, then one of the world's most influential black publications. For more than a quarter of a century, she represented Guinea during one of the most significant periods in the country's history. But history would also test her. Following President Sékou Touré's death in 1984 and the military coup, André Touré was arrested and imprisoned for 8 years before spending years in exile in Senegal and Ivory Coast. She eventually returned home in 2000, choosing a life away from the public spotlight, yet remaining a significant living symbol of Guinea's national story. In recent years, President Mamadi Doumbouya visited the former First Lady several times and oversaw the return of much of the Touré family's confiscated property. Following her death, he paid tribute to her strength, courage and lifelong service to Guinea, saying her person represents the loss of an important part of the nation's collective memory. On Sunday, Andre Toure was laid to rest following a state funeral broadcast across Guinea, attended by senior government officials and thousands of citizens paying their final respects. Her life reflected the story of modern Guinea itself, the first of its African possessions to break away from France's embrace, independence and nation-building, power and prestige, imprisonment and exile, recognition and remembrance. With the passing of Andre Toure, Africa loses one of the last surviving spouses of the generation that led the continent into independence, closing another remarkable chapter in its history. Osman Jatta, QTV News.
Coming up next is sports news. Pape Thiaw's tenure as head coach of Senegal has ended abruptly after the Fédération Sénégalaise de Football, FSF, dismissed him following the country's underwhelming performance at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. His departure concludes a turbulent spell marked by continental triumph, administrative turmoil, and growing public dissatisfaction. Usman Jatta again.
Pape Thiaw's dismissal ends a tenure that combined historic success with mountain of field challenges and a disappointing World Cup campaign. The Fédération de Football FSF confirmed Thiaw's departure after Senegal failed to meet expectations at the 2026 FIFA World Cup, where the team's performances sparked widespread criticism and intensified calls for change in leadership. Appointed on December 13, 2024, Thiaw inherited one of Africa's most demanding coaching roles and quickly delivered one of the country's biggest achievements. He guided Senegal to victory at the 2026 Africa Cup of Nations, securing the nation's second continental title and cementing his place among the country's successful national team coaches. However, the momentum generated by that triumph was soon overshadowed by administrative issues within the federation. Reports indicated that Thiaw went unpaid for 5 months in the build-up to the World Cup, while his contractual situation remained unresolved for an extended period. His previous deal reportedly expired in February 2026, leaving him without a valid contract until a new agreement was signed just hours before Senegal's group stage match against Norway. The uncertainty surrounding his employment added to an already difficult environment as the team prepared for football's biggest tournament. Thiaw also carried disciplinary baggage in the World Cup after receiving a 5-match Confederation of African Football CAF suspension and a $100,000 fine following the incident during the AFCON final against Morocco, when he led his team off the field for 17 minutes before the return to finish the match, which they won 1-0. The sanctions added another layer of pressure during a period when expectations around the national team remain exceptionally high. Senegal's World Cup campaign ultimately proved decisive. The Teranga Lions were unable to reproduce their continental form, suffering an early elimination that disappointed supporters and prompted widespread criticism. In the aftermath of the tournament, petitions calling for Thiaw's dismissal gathered thousands of signatures, reflecting growing frustration among fans. Facing increasing public pressure, the FSF opted to part ways with the coach. His departure now leaves Senegal searching for a new head coach capable of restoring confidence and steering one of Africa's leading football nations back towards success on the international stage. Osman Jatta, QTV News.
Now, before we end this news bulletin, here is a recap of our headlines. President Barrow and delegation on Saturday performed Umrah, a lesser pilgrimage in Islam's holiest city of Mecca, after 2 days of spiritual preparation in Medina. In an exclusive interview with QTV, NATIB's executive director Aissatou Dabo revealed the successful rescue of 11 children from labor exploitation in the Gambia, among other key issues. The Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, in partnership with the World Bank and the West Africa Regional Digital Integration Program, today commenced a 3-day validation workshop for the E-Gambia Power Project feasibility study. In international news, with full state honors and thousands in attendance, Guinea bid farewell to Adja André Touré, the country's founding First Lady and wife of the late President Ahmed Sékou Touré, who passed away at the age of 92. In sports news, Pape Thiaw's tenure as a Senegal head coach has ended abruptly after the Fédération Sénégal de Football dismissed him following the country's underwhelming performance at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. That's all we have time for in tonight's news edition. Thank you for watching. Join us tomorrow for more news and have a pleasant night.